Good day. Is everyone ready to be confused? You take a look at my shirt, and that says SMLE, or Short Magazine Lee-Enfield. That is not the rifle we're going to be taking a look at today. Rather, today we're going to be taking a look at a rifle No.1 Mark IV. This particular rifle here I picked up way back in 2017. I did a rebuild video on it where I reblued the barrel, sanded down the stock and restained it, added a scope. Although when I first purchased it, it did have a scope mount, a particularly excellent scope mount indeed. This is an S&K scope mount, and these are generally seen on a lot of ex-military bolt actions, and they're actually a bit pricey, but I got a pretty good deal on this entire package. That's one of those things, when you go pawn shop searching, you can generally find good deals, and I certainly did. Now, this was actually purchased already sporterized. The wood had been cut down, and a scope mount installed, and for some reason, the previous owner had removed the sling swivel, but didn't fill in the sling swivel gap. I, wanting to be at least somewhat legitimate, found a original World War II sling swivel. This is a late war pattern sling swivel with a large loop. But after that, really, once it's already sporterized to the point that it is, I decided to go full sporterization, add me a 3x9 scope, add a regular sling swivel at the front, add a rubber butt pad, and just enjoy it as it is. Now, sporterized rifles generally have a negative reputation, mainly because a lot of them were hack jobs. But I got pretty fortunate when it came to this one. This was done particularly well, although I have no idea who did it. And what they did is they cut down the rifle to look more or less like a rifle No.5 Mark I. Now, for those who might think this is a rifle No.5 Mark I, or a jungle carbine, as it is known to anyone that's not a nerd, for one, a jungle carbine would have another handguard at the top here, and would have some lightning cuts on the receiver. Now, this does not have the lightning cuts nor the handguard, but this has been reshaped to look like a jungle carbine's lower handguard. Now, if you happen to purchase a No.4 Mark I sporterized like this, you can get replacement wood, and I've considered that on a few occasions, but, ladies and gentlemen, this actually has British acceptance marks on the wood, and this is the original stock to the gun, and the sporterizing job was pretty good, so I decided to go ahead and keep it. Now, what is a rifle No.4 Mark I? Well, what it is a improved and simplified Lee-Enfield rifle. But that's not especially true. The Lee-Enfield rifle actually dates back to before the 20th century. When you talk about the Lee-Enfield anything, it's way more complicated than you might think. But let's take a look at this in particular. This is a bolt-action rifle with a cock-on-close action. It's a very, very smooth action. I absolutely love it. And the only thing about it is when you cock it, it does require a little more effort than what you would get on a Mauser. Trigger pull is absolutely excellent, if a bit stiff. It's a lot better than the Mosin trigger pull, but it's not as good as the Mauser trigger pull. This actually has a very strange trigger. The actual trigger itself is part of the trigger guard, and the actual trigger mechanism is attached to the receiver. Very, very strange indeed. Now, this does feed by stripper clips, but you can make use of the stripper clip bridge and the original front sight or rear sight base, and you can add a scope mount, which for me is very good because I have very bad eyesight and I like to hit what I'm aiming at. The scope we have on here is a 3x9 Tasco. Yeah, it's generic, but I don't shoot this rifle all that much, and I'm not trying to drag it through the mud, the blood, and the beer, so it works well enough. Or does it? To be perfectly honest, I don't know, because I haven't had a chance to go shoot it in a very long time, but we'll get to that in a moment. This particular example of No.4 Mark I is from 1944 and was manufactured at Matby in Great Britain, and there's British acceptance marks all over this rifle. And as far as I can tell, it's a completely matching numbers firearm, including the detachable magazine. One of the other great elements of the Lee-Enfield is the detachable magazine. However, this detachable magazine doesn't mean much. In actual usage, these were only detached for cleaning, and you weren't actually issued a bunch of magazines, and you just fed them via stripper clips. Still, though, having 10 rounds was quite the boon back when this was released. However, to confuse issues even more, originally the Lee-Enfield series of rifles only had an 8-round magazine and did not feed by stripper clips. Confused yet? We'll get to that in a moment as well. Now, Why have I not actually filmed me shooting this rifle since 2017? Ammo, ladies and gentlemen. Finding proper ammo for this is not an easy prospect. I remember when I announced that I was going to finally go shoot it, and I said that I was using Wolf steel case, I had a comment saying, well, hopefully you can hit something with it. And I was like, oh, that's just being an ammo snob. I've shot hundreds of thousands, not hundreds of thousands, but thousands of rounds of Wolf in 7.62 by 3.9 and 7.62 by 5.4. Surely 303 is going to be great, right? Wrong. Some of the shooting footage that we're going to be taking a look at today, well, actually all the shooting footage that we're looking at today comes from 2018. It was the last time I had a chance to shoot this rifle. And I shoot some Wolf steel case. And, yeah, it's a pretty big dumpster fire. And we'll take a look at that. And the only ammo that actually worked was 150 grain soft point PPU ammo that I got at a gun show for $20 for a box of 20. That was a bit of a ridiculous price, but thankfully I found some online and I have a good stock of it now. Unfortunately, due to the current circumstances, which when you watch this video many years in the future will be like, what were the circumstances? Nobody even remembers. But ultimately, both due to lack of time and other firearms, this got put on the back burner. But I do have ammo for this, and by the time of the review, I'll definitely have put quite a few rounds through this thing to give it a proper review. But with proper ammo, this thing is a highly accurate rifle, and is a highly reliable rifle, and I did not actually get any rim lock cycling the weapon, although will show me botching a basic hand reload with this. So, what is so complicated about the Lee-Enfield series of rifles? Well, for one, Lee-Enfield series is not really a proper name for it. So, what's the difference between a Smelly and a No.4 Mk1? There's a lot of differences. There's a lot of developmental changes. But the easiest rule of thumb, and all Lee-Enfield aficionados will kind of look at you and ask as to how foolish you would be to say this, but the Smelly is the World War I Lee-Enfield, and the No.4 Mk1 is the World War II Lee-Enfield. Keep in mind that by the time of the No.4 Mk1, James Paris Lee, the inventor of the detachable box magazine and one of the designers of this rifle, was already long dead. He didn't actually design this rifle, he designed the original Lee-Enfield, but even then that's not... Let's put it this way, when I get to the review, I'm going to have to go through a major developmental phase to explain what Lee-Enfield even means. Because the first rifles that were in somewhat of a similar configuration, not even to this, but to the Smelly, was called a Lee-Metford, and that had to do with the rifling, and blah, 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 blah. I've confused everybody because it's very complicated. Let's just put it this way. Right now, we're going to take this out to the range. We've got some steel case Wolf, and it's going to be a dumpster fire. And we've got some brass case PPU, which is going to be substantially less of a dumpster fire. You're also going to see that I have a different scope on this rifle as well. A fixed 4-power that actually worked pretty well, but once I realized it wasn't the scope causing me problems, but instead the ammo, I put the 3x9 back on. So with that, let's head out to the range and take a look. I told you that was a dumpster fire. We had failures to fire, we had feeding issues, and, as you can see, it was keyholing all day long. But I am pretty proud of myself for getting a bullseye with a keyhole. That was pretty nice, at 50 yards no less. So once I figured that out, I popped in the brass case PPU, and, well, let's take a look. Now that's more like it. That's more in keeping with what this rifle can do. Now, historically, the Lee-Enfield series of rifles were not considered were not considered to be altogether that accurate. But with that in mind, it was always just a military rifle, and that accuracy that we got at 50 yards with a scope that was in no way, shape, or form sighted in is not bad. Not bad at all. I'm quite impressed with this firearm, and once I finally get a chance to actually go to the range and put some real ammo down it, I think we'll see just what this thing is capable of. Now then, ladies and gentlemen, do I recommend picking up a No. 4 Mk1? Yes, and that's mainly because it is a very fun rifle to shoot. It is very unique. Its rear locking lug and cock-on close action makes for a different shooting experience compared to a Mauser or a Mosin. Ammo, at least at one time, and it still kind of is, if far more expensive than it was, fairly plentiful. But always get the 150 grain soft points. This actually works with this bloody rifle. Just skip Wolf. I don't know what happened. I don't know why their 303 steel case is so terrible, but whatever. I am highly looking forward to this rifle review because there's so much history to get into on just what is a No. 4 Mk1 and what is a Lee-Enfield. And the Lee-Enfield story is a really fascinating one. But until then, I am General Lotz, wishing you good rifle No. 4 Mk1, whatever makes you happy. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, and if you can, please consider supporting me on Patreon so that I can continue bringing you this awesome content.